Sometimes Python programmers think of variables as kind of like a bucket that might hold an object. Unfortunately, this mental model of Python actually breaks down pretty quickly. We have a variable a that points to a list. Let's make a new variable b and assign it to a. If we append a new item to b, what will its length be? Initially, the B list had 4 items, so now it should have 5 items. And it does. How many items do you think A has? What's your guess? Is it 5, the same as B? Or is it still 4 as it was before? The A list also has 5 items. What's going on here? Well, the variables A and B both point to the same list. If we look up the unique ID for the object that each of these variables points to, we'll see that they both point to the same object. This is possible because variables in Python are not buckets, but pointers. Let's say we've made 3 assignment statements to 3 variables. This is how Python represents these variables and objects. Note that Python stores the variables in a separate place than it stores the objects. At any given time, each variable in Python points to exactly one object, but each object may have multiple variables pointing to it. In our case, the variables a and b both point to the same object. How did this happen, and how can we avoid it? Assignment statements in Python don't copy anything. They just point a variable to an object. So assigning one variable to another variable will point 2 variables to the same object. When we said b equals a, we gave 2 names to the same object. That line of code is a weird one to see when we're working with objects that can be changed. Lists are mutable, meaning they can be changed. If we wanted to make a new variable that stores a new list, there are lots of ways to do it. We could use slicing to copy A and then point B to the new list. Or we could use the list constructor to loop over A and make a new list out of it. Or we could call the list copy method. All of these assignments involve explicitly making a new list and then pointing B to that new list. An assignment in Python points a variable to an object. That's it. A variable doesn't contain an object, and nothing gets implicitly copied during an assignment. Instead of thinking of variables as buckets that contain objects, think of them as bindings, references, aliases, or pointers. These are all terms that you'll hear used to describe how variables work in Python. But regardless of what word you use to describe the relationship between variables and objects, make sure not to use the mental model of a variable containing an object. Variables are not like buckets in Python. Instead, they're pointers.